In this exercise, we're going to rotate the feather into place, we're going to fill this outer feather path with white, and then we're going to adjust the stacking order so everything works out the way we want it to. I've saved my progress as completefeather.ai found inside the O4 line art folder, and I'm zoomed in a little too close, so I'm going to press Control 1 or Command 1 on the Mac in order to zoom out to the 100% view. Now I'd like you to go ahead and grab your black arrow tool and drag around this portion of the arrow. Don't drag into the heart. Keep it out here. And that will select all of the arrow paths. And now what I want you to do is I want you to rotate this arrow with respect to the center of the artboard. Now, you can do that if you want to using the transform panel. So bring up the transform panel. You would need to specify a reference point, which is going to be the middle right side of the selected paths. So you would click on this point right there. And then you would enter an angle of rotation. And you can even choose from a list. So I could say, well, I know I want to angle it 30 degrees, let's say. But that gives me this result. That's the wrong direction. I really want it to be the other direction. So I'll press Control Z to undo that maneuver, Command Z on a Mac. That hides the transform panel. What a pain in the neck. Bring it back up. That point's still selected, my reference point, so that's a good thing. And now I'll switch to negative 30 degrees. And that ends up working out. So I could work that way. And you can if you want to. But the problem is you only have 9 reference points to choose from. And as you grow more sophisticated with Illustrator, you're going to want a lot more control than that. So here's what I suggest you do. Control Z, Command Z on the Mac to undo that modification. Switch from the Reflect tool right here to the Rotate tool. And you can get the Rotate tool by pressing the R key. Makes perfect sense. And then notice there's your center point. We do not want to rotate the arrow around its center. Instead, we want to rotate the arrow around this location right there. And because we know we want 30 degrees, we want to force the display of the dialog box. And as you may recall from having used the Reflect tool, you do that by pressing the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac and clicking at your center of rotation in this case, which needs to be right there. So Alt click or Option click at the intersection of those guidelines in the center of the artboard, brings up the Rotate dialog box, and it just so happens in my case to be set to negative 30 degrees, but that is what you want, negative 30 degrees, so minus 30. And don't click Copy, because that'll create a copy of the arrow. Instead, you want to click OK in order to go ahead and rotate that arrow into place. All right. So far, so good. Now, let's go ahead and switch back to the black arrow tool. And I'm going to click off the shapes in order to deselect them and then click on the outline that surrounds the entire feather to select it. And now go up here to the control panel and I'll click on this first icon right there in order to bring up the wee little swatches panel, and I'll click on white to fill that feather with white. Well, obviously, that helps because we don't want to see through the feather to the heart behind it. However, I'm covering up the shaft and the other feather elements as well. Now, there's all kinds of ways to stack objects inside of Illustrator, and I'll be showing you the many ways to send objects backward and forward and between layers and so on. But right now, we're going to take advantage of the easiest technique, which is available to us in the Layers panel. And it works out brilliantly when you're working with simple illustrations like this one. I'll twirl open the drawing layer by clicking on its triangle. And notice our various paths. This guy right there, that's the shaft. Let's go ahead and name it shaft, like so. And this one is the little feather elements. I don't know what to call it, so we'll just leave it set to path. And this guy is going to be the feather. So we'll go ahead and call it feather and click OK. Well, feather needs to be behind shaft, so you can just drag it down behind shaft like so. And now it's in exactly the right position. So we have feather, shaft, path, whatever that thing's called. Now what I'd like you to do is with the black arrow tool once again, drag around part of the feather, which is going to select all 3 of these paths. And let's go ahead and group them together by going up to the Object menu and choosing the Group command or pressing Control G, Command G on the Mac. And that goes ahead and creates a single group. You can still twirl it open and see those paths inside, feather, shaft, and path. Twirl it closed, and let's go ahead and rename it. I'll double click on it and call it arrow, because that's what it is, and then click OK in order to finalize the arrow shooting into the heart. And now it's time to take a look at the only remaining line tool, the spiral tool, in the next exercise.